Welcome to Readability. I'm your host, Ashley Kelson. In Readability, we read all kinds of stories, from short storybooks to large chapter books. You could sit down with family or just lay back and relax. Every Saturday, we read, review, and recommend different books for your listening pleasure. I really hope you enjoy Readability. Let's get started. All right, let's get on to our Readability kickoff session. Hey there, welcome back to Readability. It is your lovely host, Ashley, with another reading and an additional review. For this week's kickoff session, I just wanted to give a big ol' thank you to all of my viewers. I appreciate every one of you, and it's super fun making content for my supporters. If you want to help Readability grow, check out our website at readabilityforkids.com and our YouTube channel at Readability. And even if you're just listening to it on any podcast app, I am still thankful. Let's get on to Readability. Our book for this episode will be The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. Funny story, I've already read The Wild Robot Escapes, which is actually the second book in the series. I already know some key things from this book, and I enjoyed it very much. Now, instead of reading one chapter like my reading of Ghost, which you can check out after, I'll have to read 2 chapters. Now, the chapters in this book are very minimal and short. For example, I believe there was 2 chapters that were back to back. Like one was on one page and the other was on the next page. Crazy, right? But don't worry, it'll still be worth it in the end of the episode. I've also noticed that these episodes are a bit long, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the reading of The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. Our story begins on the ocean, with wind and rain and thunder and lightning and waves. A hurricane roared and raged through the night, and in the middle of the chaos, a cargo ship was sinking, down, down, down to the ocean floor. The ship left hundreds of crates floating on the surface, but as the hurricane thrashed and swirled and knocked them around, the crates also began sinking into the depths. One after another, they were swallowed up by the waves until only 5 crates remained. By morning, the hurricane was gone. There were no clouds, no ships, no land in sight. There was only calm water and clear skies, and those 5 crates lazily bobbing along the ocean current. Days passed, and then a smudge of green appeared on the horizon. As the crates drifted closer, the soft green shape slowly sharpened into the hard edges of a wild, rocky island. The first crate rode to the shore on the tumbling, rumbling wave and then crashed against the rocks with such force that the whole thing burst apart. Now, reader, what I haven't mentioned yet is that tightly packed inside each crate was a brand new robot. The cargo ship had been transporting hundreds of them before it was swept into the storm. Now only 5 robots were left. Actually, only 4 were left because when that first crate crashed against the rocks, the robot inside shattered into pieces. The same thing happened to the next crate. It crashed against the rocks, and the robot parts flew everywhere. Then it happened to the next crate, and the next. Robot limbs and torsos were flung into ledges. A robot head splashed into a tide pool. A robot foot skittered into the waves. And then came the last crate. It followed the same path as the others, but instead of crashing against the rocks, it sloshed against the remains of the first 4 crates. Soon, more waves were heavying it up out of the water. It soared through the air, spinning and glistening until it slammed down into a tall shelf of rock. The crate was crackled and crumpled, but the robot inside was safe. Chapter 2. The Otters. The island's northern shore had become something of a robot gravesite. Scattered across the rocks were broken bodies of 4 dead robots. They sparkled in the early morning light, and their sparkles caught the attention of some very curious creatures. A gang of sea otters was romping through the shallows when one of them noticed the sparkling objects. The otters all froze. They raised their noses to the wind, but they smelled only the sea, so they cautiously crept over the rocks to take a closer look. The gang slowly approached a robot torso. The biggest otter stuck out his paw, swatted the heavy thing, and quickly jumped back. But nothing happened, so they wriggled over to a robot hand. Another brave otter stuck out her paw and flipped the hand over. It made a lovely clicking sound on the rocks, and the otters squeaked with delight. They spread out and played with robot arms and legs and feet. More hands were flipped. One of the otters discovered a robot head in the tide pool, and they all dove in and took turns rolling it along the bottom. And then they spotted something else. Overlooking the gravesite was one of the surviving crates. Its sides were scraped and dented, and the wide gash ran across its top. The otters scampered up the rocks and climbed onto the big box. 10 furry faces poked through the gash, eager to see what was inside. What they saw was another brand new robot, but this robot was different from the others. It was still in one piece, and it was surrounded by spongy packaging foam. The otters reached through the gash and tore at the foam. It was so soft and squishy. They squeaked as they snatched the fluffy stuff. Shreds of it floated away on the sea breeze. And all in excitement, one of their paws accidentally slapped an important little button on the back of the robot's head. Click! It took a while for the otters to realize that something was happening inside the crate. But a moment later, they heard it, a low, whirring sound. Everyone stopped and stared, and then the robot opened her eyes. As you may know, those were the first 2 chapters of The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. It is now time to reflect and see what we think about the book. Is there anything you like, dislike, etc.? For this book, and my personal preference, I think this really left us hanging, and I think that's a good method for making readers interested in your story and the plot. Even after reading The Wild Robot Escapes, Peter Brown does that frequently. And that's what makes me want to continue reading. It is a great hook, and I have a lot more questions about what will happen next in the plot later on. Even though I have read the sequel, there are still some details I haven't read much of. Well, now we can't do the character thoughts for this episode and the 2 chapters. Only because we haven't really met any characters. If you do need something for some reason, I can only say that the otters are, super curious, and they may help drive the story further as they turned on the robot in the remaining crate on. Here's the list of the many questions I still have from reading those chapters. What happened to the ship? Did the crew members pass? Are the owners going to try and find it? What will happen when the otters see the robot? Is the robot friendly or not? Is the robot fully damaged? Can the robot move? And can the robot speak? I really hope this review will help you out in the future for making a decision for if you want the book or not. I totally recommend this book, and The Wild Robot Escapes for that matter. They are both very good books. And with that all said, here is our official readability ending. Thank you for joining me, your host, Ashley Kelson, on Readability. It has been a really great time, and I hope you join me again next week. Remember, every Saturday we either read, review, or recommend a book for your listening pleasure. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Keep reading, folks. Bye!